The empty space between stars held many secrets. Commander Kyle of the Veltari Empire stood on the bridge of his scout ship, the Silent Whisper, watching the darkness through the main viewing screen. His green-scaled fingers tapped against the metal railing as he waited for his crew to finish their routine patrol scan. For 300 cycles, the Veltari had been expanding across this part of the galaxy. They moved like a slow wave, taking over one star system after another. Some planets had no life at all. Others had creatures that could barely use fire. The Veltari had never found anyone who could truly fight back. "Commander," called out scanner operative Thex from her station. "I am picking up something strange." Kale turned toward her. His ship was small but fast, designed to move ahead of the main fleet and look for new worlds to conquer. The Silent Whisper carried the best scanning equipment the Empire could build. If Thex found something, it was worth investigating. "What kind of strange?" Kyle asked. "A large metal object, sir. Very large. It does not match any design in our database." Kyle walked over to her station and looked at the readings. The object was indeed massive, much bigger than his scout ship. The metal showed signs of advanced construction, but the design was completely foreign. "Distance?" he asked. 12,000 units, sir. It appears to be drifting without power." Kale smiled, showing his sharp teeth. A derelict ship of unknown design meant two things: technology to study and possibly valuable materials to claim. The Empire always rewarded commanders who brought back useful discoveries. "Set course for the object. Prepare for detailed scanning." Meanwhile, far from where the Veltari ship moved through space, the object they had detected was very much alive. The indomitable will hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Its hull was dark gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange markings covered its surface, symbols that looked both ancient and advanced at the same time. On the bridge of the human ship, Captain Lee Dongyun sat in his command chair, reading reports on a small screen. He was a man in his 40s with short black hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. The indomitable will was not lost or broken. It was hunting. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho from the tactical station, "I am detecting a small vessel approaching our position." Captain Lee looked up from his reports. "Distance and size?" "About 12,000 kilometers out, sir. Much smaller than us. Their technology appears to be several generations behind ours." Dr. Park Min-seo, the ship's xenobiology specialist, turned from her science station. She was a young woman with intelligent eyes and short hair tied back in a simple style. "Captain, should I prepare the first contact protocols?" "Not yet, Doctor. Let us see what they do first." The human ship had been waiting in this empty region of space for 2 weeks. Intelligence reports suggested that an aggressive alien species was expanding in this direction. Earth Command wanted to know more about these aliens before they got too close to human space. The indomitable will looked like a derelict ship on purpose. Its advanced stealth systems made it appear dead in space while actually running at full power. Captain Lee and his crew were ready for whatever these aliens might try. Back on the Silent Whisper, Commander Kale watched the unknown ship grow larger on his viewing screen. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Where Veltari ships were smooth and curved, this vessel had sharp angles and flat surfaces. Strange towers and equipment stuck out from its hull in ways that seemed almost random. "It looks primitive," said Thex, "but the metal appears to be very strong." "Any signs of life?" Kale asked. "None that I can detect, sir. No energy readings, no heat signatures. It appears completely dead." Kale nodded. "Excellent. Begin full deep scan procedures. I want to know everything about this ship before we go aboard." The deep scan was the Veltari Empire's most powerful investigation tool. It used quantum resonance waves that could penetrate any known material. The scan would map every room, every system, and every piece of technology on the target ship. It would also temporarily disable most electronic systems, making it safe for Veltari boarding parties to take control. The process had never failed them. "Initiating deep scan now." "Sir," reported Thex. On the human ship, alarms began to sound immediately. "Captain," Kim Ji-ho called out, "we are being scanned by some kind of quantum resonance beam. It is very powerful and trying to penetrate our hull." Captain Lee stood up quickly. "Can you block it?" "Working on it, sir. But this is not like any scanning technology in our database." Dr. Park Min-seo was already at her station, analyzing the incoming beam. "Captain, This type of scan is designed to map our entire ship and disable our systems. It is definitely a hostile action. Captain Lee's face became very serious. So much for first contact protocols. These aliens are not here to talk. The quantum resonance beam from the Veltari ship was indeed powerful. It began to penetrate the outer layers of the human ship's hull, mapping the corridors and rooms beyond. But as it went deeper, something unexpected happened. The human ship began to scan back. "Sir," Thex called out in alarm. "Something is wrong with the deep scan. I am getting feedback through the resonance beam." Commander Kale moved to her station. "What kind of feedback?" "I do not know, sir. It is like the target ship is scanning us in return, but that should be impossible. The deep scan disables all electronic systems." On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Engineer Bei Wu Jin was working frantically at his station. He was a tall man with steady hands and years of experience with human defensive systems. "Captain," he said without looking up from his controls, "I have identified the scanning frequency. Our quantum mirror shields are responding automatically." "Mirror shields?" Dr. Park asked. "A human innovation," Captain Lee explained. "Instead of just blocking enemy scans, we reflect them back with improvements." Engineer Bay, prepare to activate the mirror protocol. "Already on it, sir. These aliens are about to learn that humans do not like being scanned without permission." The quantum resonance beam from the silent whisper was now bouncing back toward its source. But it was different. Human technology had changed it, improved it, and made it far more powerful than anything the Veltari had ever created, Commander. Kale was about to discover that the primitive-looking ship he had decided to scan was actually a predator that had been waiting for him to make exactly this mistake. The quantum resonance beam from the silent whisper cut through space like an invisible knife. Commander Kale watched his scanner displays with satisfaction as the beam reached the strange ship and began its work. The readings showed the beam penetrating the outer hull and mapping the interior structures. "Excellent progress," Kale said to scanner operative Thex. "What are you finding?" "The ship is much larger inside than it appeared, sir. Multiple decks, hundreds of rooms. The metal construction is very advanced, but the design is still primitive." Kale nodded. The Veltari deep scan had never met a ship it could not completely map and disable. The process was simple. Send out quantum waves that could pass through any material, map everything they touched, and overload the target's electronic systems in the process. After the scan was complete, the target ship would be helpless. "Any signs of crew?" Kale asked. "I am detecting life forms, sir. Approximately 200 of them. They appear to be carbon-based, similar to many species we have encountered before." "Good. Are their systems shutting down as expected?" Thex frowned at her displays. "That is strange, sir. The deep scan should have disabled their electronics by now, but I am still reading active power systems." Kale moved closer to look at the readings himself. Perhaps their technology is more primitive than we thought. Some very basic systems can resist the quantum resonance for a short time. But on the human ship, something completely different was happening. Captain Lee Dong-yun stood behind Engineer Bei Wu Jin's station, watching the defensive systems respond to the alien attack. The bridge was filled with quiet activity as his crew worked to analyze and counter the quantum beam. "Status report," Captain Lee said calmly. "The alien scan has penetrated our outer hull," Lieutenant Kim Jiho reported from Tactical. "But our quantum mirror shields are holding. The beam is mapping some of our systems, but only the ones we want them to see." Dr. Park Minseo looked up from her analysis station. "Captain, I have been studying their scanning frequency. This technology is designed to disable ship systems completely. They are not trying to communicate with us, they are preparing to attack." Captain Lee's expression grew cold. "So they scan first, then board and take whatever they want." "That appears to be their method, sir," Dr. Park replied. "I am detecting traces of other ship designs in their scan pattern. They have used this technique many times before." Engineer Bei Wu Jin's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "Captain, the mirror protocol is ready. Should I activate it?" "Not yet. Let them think their scan is working. I want to see what else they will try." The mirror protocol was one of humanity's greatest defensive innovations. While other species had learned to build stronger shields or more powerful weapons, humans had learned to turn enemy attacks against themselves. The quantum mirror shields did not just block the alien scan, they studied it, improved it, and prepared to send it back. On the silent whisper, Thex was becoming more concerned about the readings she was seeing. "Commander, The target ship's power systems are still active. In fact, they appear to be increasing power to several unknown systems. Kyle studied the displays with growing confusion. That should not be possible. The deep scan quantum field should have overloaded their electronics by now. Sir, there is something else. I am starting to detect some kind of interference in our scanning beam. It is almost like the target ship is scanning us in return. Impossible, Kale said firmly. No species has ever developed technology that can function during a deep scan. Continue the procedure. But even as he spoke, Kale could see that something was wrong. The readings from the target ship were not making sense. The quantum resonance beam should have mapped the entire vessel by now, but new sections kept appearing on the scanner. It was as if the ship was larger inside than outside. Thex, run a diagnostic on the scanning equipment. Already done, sir. All systems are functioning normally. But the target ship? It is like it is changing while we scan it. What Thex could not know was that the human ship was indeed changing. Engineer Bei Wujin had activated the adaptive hull systems. As the alien scan mapped one section of the ship, the hull would shift and create new sections. The Veltari were not just scanning the indomitable will. They were scanning a puzzle that kept changing its shape. This is fascinating, Dr. Park Min-seo said as she watched the alien scanning attempt. Their technology is quite sophisticated, but they have never encountered adaptive defenses before. Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho was tracking the scan's progress on his tactical displays. Captain, they have mapped about 30% of our ship, but only the sections we are showing them. Our real weapon systems and critical areas are still hidden. How long before they realize what is happening? Captain Lee asked. Hard to say, sir. But they are already showing signs of confusion. Their scan is taking much longer than it should. Communications Officer Yoon Na-young turned from her station. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke unless she had something important to say. Captain, I am intercepting their communications. They are starting to worry that something is wrong. Can you understand their language? Not yet, sir. But our translation computers are analyzing their speech patterns. I should have basic communication ability within the hour. Captain Lee nodded. Good work. Continue monitoring them. Engineer Bei Wujin looked up from his station. Captain, I have a complete analysis of their scanning technology now. It is very advanced, but it has a critical weakness. What kind of weakness? The quantum resonance beam creates a direct connection between the two ships. They probably use this connection to disable target systems and then maintain control during boarding operations. But if we reverse the beam, we can disable their ship instead, Captain Lee finished. Exactly, sir. The mirror protocol is ready. We can overload their systems at any time. Captain Lee considered his options. The alien ship had attacked them without any attempt at communication. Dr. Park's analysis suggested this was their normal behavior. Scan, disable, board, and take what they wanted. How many other ships had they destroyed this way? Not yet, Captain Lee decided. Let them finish their scan first. I want to see what they do when they think we are helpless. On the silent whisper, Commander Kale was becoming increasingly frustrated with the scanning results. Thex, this scan should have been completed long ago. What is taking so much time? I do not know, sir. The target ship keeps revealing new sections. It is as if it is much larger than our initial reading suggested. And their systems? Still active, sir. Some are even increasing in power. This has never happened before. Kyle's sharp teeth showed in an angry grimace. Perhaps this species is more advanced than we thought. No matter. When the scan is complete, we will board them and take their technology by force. Sir? Thex said carefully. Perhaps we should contact the main fleet for assistance. Absolutely not, Kyle snapped. One small ship will not defeat the Veltari Empire. Continue the scan. But as Thex worked at her station, she could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The quantum resonance beam was behaving in ways she had never seen before. It was almost as if the target ship was learning from their scan and adapting to it. On the human bridge, Captain Lee watched the alien ship continue its attack. Soon, the aliens would think they had completely mapped his ship. Then they would probably try to board. That would be their second mistake. Their first mistake had been scanning a human warship without permission. Commander Kale stared at his scanner displays with growing anger. The deep scan had been running for far longer than normal, and the target ship systems were still active. Worse, the readings were becoming more confusing by the minute. Thex, I want answers. Why is this taking so long? Scanner operative. Thex's scaled hands moved nervously over her controls. Sir, the target ship appears to be responding to our scan. Their power systems are not shutting down. Instead, they are adapting. Adapting? That is impossible. No species has technology that can adapt to a Veltari deep scan. Nevertheless, sir, that appears to be what is happening. And there is something else. Kale moved to her station. What? I am detecting a return signal following our quantum beam back toward us. It is very faint, but it is there. On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Engineer Bei Wu-jin was ready to show the aliens what human technology could do. Captain, he said, the alien scan is almost complete. They have mapped all the false sections we wanted them to see. Should I activate the mirror protocol now? Captain Lee Dongyan stood behind the engineer's chair, watching the tactical displays. What exactly will happen when you activate it? The mirror protocol will reverse their quantum beam and send it back to them with modifications. Their own scanning technology will become a weapon against their ship. Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho looked up from his station. Sir, I am detecting movement on the alien ship. It looks like they are preparing boarding pods. Dr. Park Min-seo turned from her science station. Captain, based on their behavior patterns, they scan a ship first to disable it, then board and take control. They probably have experience with many different species. None of whom could fight back, Captain Lee said grimly. Communications Officer Yoon, any progress on their language? Communications Officer Yoon Na-young nodded. Yes, sir. I have basic translation capability now. They are discussing how to board our ship and capture our crew for questioning. Captain Lee's expression became very cold. So they are not just thieves. They are slavers too. It appears so, sir. Engineer Bay, activate the mirror protocol. Let us show these aliens that humans are not prey. Bei Wu-jin's fingers moved over his controls with practiced skill. Mirror protocol activated, sir. Reversing quantum beam. Now. The change was immediate and devastating. On the silent whisper, Thex suddenly screamed as her scanner displays exploded with warnings and error messages. Commander! The return signal just increased by a factor of 10,000. Our own scanning beam is coming back at us. Kale rushed to her station as alarms began sounding throughout the ship. What do you mean coming back at us? The quantum resonance beam is reversing, sir. But it is not the same beam we sent out. It has been modified somehow. Our systems cannot handle it. The quantum beam that the Veltari had sent out was designed to penetrate and map enemy ships, but the beam returning to them was something entirely different. Human engineers had studied the alien technology and improved it. The return beam carried viruses designed to infiltrate computer systems, feedback loops that would overload power systems, and scanning routines that could map a ship in seconds instead of hours. All across the silent whisper, systems began to fail. Emergency power, Kale shouted. Cut the scanning beam. I cannot, sir, Thex replied. The beam is locked on. Our own equipment will not respond to shutdown commands. The human modifications to the quantum beam were designed specifically to prevent this. Once the mirror protocol activated, the alien ship could not stop the process. They could only experience what it felt like to be scanned by technology far more advanced than their own. On the human bridge, Engineer Bei Wu-jin watched his displays with satisfaction. Captain, the mirror protocol is working perfectly. We now have complete access to their computer systems. What can you tell me about them? Captain Lee asked. Dr. Park Min-seo was already analyzing the incoming data. Captain, this is terrible. They have records of attacks on dozens of different species. They scan ships, disable them, board them, and take prisoners. The prisoners are sold as slaves to other parts of their empire. Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho was studying the tactical information. Sir, their ship is much less advanced than ours, but they have superior numbers. This scout ship is part of a larger fleet that follows behind. How large a fleet? At least 50 ships, sir. Some of them much larger than this scout. Communications Officer Yoon Na-young was listening to the alien communications. Captain, they are trying to send a distress signal to their fleet. Should I block it? Captain Lee thought for a moment. Not yet. Let them send one message. I want their fleet to know what happened here. On the silent whisper, the situation was getting worse by the second. The modified quantum beam was tearing through their systems like a virus, mapping everything and taking control of ship functions. Damage report. Commander Kale shouted over the alarms. Weapons offline, reported one crew member. Engines failing, called another. Life support systems compromised. Thex was still at her scanner station, watching helplessly as the human beam mapped their entire ship. Sir, they have complete access to our computers. They are downloading our database, our star charts, everything. Kale's mind raced. This was not supposed to happen. The Veltari were the advanced species. They were the ones who scanned and conquered primitive aliens. How could some unknown species turn their own technology against them so easily? Send a priority message to the fleet, he ordered. Tell them we have encountered a hostile species with technology superior to our own. I will try. Sir, but our communication systems are failing. On the human ship, Engineer Bei Wujin was having no trouble with communications. Captain, I have taken control of their communication systems. They are trying to send a warning to their fleet. Let them send it, Captain Lee said. But make sure they include our message too. Dr. Park Minseo looked up from her analysis. Captain, what kind of message? Tell their fleet that humans do not appreciate being scanned without permission. Tell them that any Veltari ships found in human space will be treated as hostile. And tell them that if they want war, we are ready to give them one. Communications Officer Yoon translated the message into the Veltari language, and Engineer Bei sent it along with the alien distress signal. On the silent whisper, Commander Kyle received the human message with shock and growing fear. They speak our language, he said in disbelief. How do they speak our language? They learned it by analyzing our communications, Thex replied weakly. In less than 1 hour. Sir, I do not think these are primitive aliens. Kale looked at the tactical display showing the human ship. It no longer looked like a derelict. Power signatures showed it running at full capacity, and new weapon systems were coming online that had not been visible during the scan. What are they? He whispered, as if in answer to his question. Captain Lee's voice came through the silent whispers communication system. Speaking perfect Veltari, Commander Kale of the Veltari Empire, this is Captain Lee Dongyun of the human warship Indomitable Will. You have committed an act of war against humanity by scanning our vessel without permission. Your ship is now under our control. You have one opportunity to explain why we should not destroy you immediately. Kale stared at the communication panel. The human voice was calm and controlled, but carried an undertone of absolute authority. This was not a primitive alien begging for mercy. This was a predator that had caught its prey. Commander Kale stood frozen on the bridge of the silent whisper as Captain Lee's words echoed through his ship's speakers. The human had spoken in perfect Veltari language, better than some native speakers Kale had heard. Around him, his crew worked frantically to regain control of their failing systems. How do we respond, sir? Asked his communications officer, a young Veltari named Dex. Kale's mind raced. In all his years of service to the Empire, he had never encountered a situation like this. The Veltari were always the hunters, never the prey. They had technology superior to every species they had ever met. But these humans had turned the Veltari's own weapons against them in a matter of minutes. Open a channel, Kyle said finally. Let me speak to this Captain Lee. On the human ship? Communications Officer Yoon Nayung nodded to Captain Lee. Sir, the alien commander wants to speak with you. Captain Lee Donghyun sat back in his command chair considering his options. The Veltari ship was completely under his control now. Engineer Bei Wujin had used their own quantum beam to infiltrate every system on their vessel. The aliens could not even fire their weapons without human permission. Put him through, Captain Lee said. Kale's voice came through the speakers, speaking in heavily accented but understandable human language. Captain Lee, I am Commander Kale of the Veltari scout ship Silent Whisper. There has been a misunderstanding. Dr. Park Minseo looked up from her analysis station and shook her head. She had been studying the Veltari database that Engineer Bei had downloaded. Captain, there is no misunderstanding. Their records show attacks on 47 different species in the past 50 years. Captain Lee activated his microphone. Commander Kale, we have your complete database. We know exactly what you do to other species. You scan them, disable their ships, board them, and take prisoners to sell as slaves. Is this correct? There was a long pause before Kale answered. The Veltari Empire expands to bring order to the galaxy. We encounter many primitive species that cannot govern themselves properly. So, you govern them by enslaving them. We provide structure and purpose to species that would otherwise destroy themselves. Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho turned from his tactical station. Captain, their weapon systems are completely offline, but I am detecting movement in their shuttle bay. It looks like they are preparing escape pods. Captain Lee frowned. Engineer Bei, can you lock down their shuttle bay? Already done, sir, Bei Wujin replied. They cannot launch anything without our permission. On the Veltari ship, Kale watched his crew struggle with systems that no longer responded to their commands. The humans had not just taken control of their weapons and engines, they controlled everything from life support to the food dispensers. "Sir," Scanner Operative Thex said quietly, "I have been analyzing the human ship's true capabilities. What they showed us during the scan was only a small fraction of their real technology." "What do you mean?" "The quantum resonance beam they sent back to us operates on principles I do not understand. They have somehow merged quantum mechanics with something else, something that allows their technology to learn and adapt in real time." Kale studied the readings on Thex's displays. The human ship was no longer hiding its true power. Weapon systems that had been invisible during the scan were now clearly visible. The ship was easily 3 times more powerful than any Veltari vessel. "How is this possible?" Kyle muttered. "We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy." "Perhaps," Thex said carefully. "We only had the most advanced technology we knew about." On the human bridge, Dr. Park Minseo was continuing her analysis of the Veltari records. "Captain, I have found something interesting. The Veltari expansion follows a specific pattern. They always move slowly, sending scouts ahead to test new regions. When they find inhabited systems, they send larger fleets to take control." "How large are these fleets?" Captain Lee asked. "Based on their records, typically 50 to 100 ships. And Captain, they are heading toward human space. This scout ship is part of an advance force that was sent to map our region of the galaxy." Lieutenant Kim Jiho checked his tactical displays. "Sir, at their current rate of expansion, the main Veltari fleet would reach our outer colonies within 2 years." Captain Lee stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. The Veltari scout ship hung in space before them, its lights flickering as the human-controlled systems decided what functions to allow. "Commander Kale," he said into his microphone, "your empire has made a critical error. You assumed that any species you encountered would be weaker than you. You never considered what would happen if you met someone stronger." Kale's voice came back immediately. "Captain Lee, the Veltari Empire is vast. We have thousands of ships and control hundreds of star systems. Even if you defeat us, our fleet will come looking for us." "I am counting on it," Captain Lee replied. Communications Officer Yoon Nayung turned to face the captain. "Sir, I am monitoring their long-range communications. The Veltari fleet is still 3 months away from this position." "Perfect. That gives us time to prepare a proper welcome for them." Dr. Park Minseo looked concerned. "Captain, even with our technological advantages, we are only 1 ship. Their records show the main fleet has over 80 vessels. Doctor, you are thinking like the Veltari. They assume that superior numbers always win, but humans learned long ago that technology and tactics can overcome raw numbers." Engineer Bei Woo-jin looked up from his station. "Captain, I have an idea. The Veltari quantum communication system is very sophisticated. If we modify it with our technology, we could send a message to their entire fleet." "What kind of message?" "A demonstration. We could show them exactly what happened to this scout ship. Let them see how easily we took control of their most advanced scanning technology." Captain Lee smiled for the first time since the encounter began. "Do it. But first I want to have a final conversation with Commander Kale." He activated his microphone again. "Commander, you have 2 choices. You can cooperate with us and provide information about your fleet's plans, or you can refuse and become an example to your people of what happens when they threaten humanity." On the silent whisper, Kale felt a chill run through his body. The human captain's voice was perfectly calm, but the threat was clear. These humans were not like the other species the Veltari had encountered. They were not afraid and they were not asking for mercy. "What do you want to know?" Kale asked. "Everything. Fleet positions, ship capabilities, planned invasion routes, and any other information about your empire that might be useful." Kale looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. If he cooperated with the humans, he would be betraying the empire. If he refused, these humans would probably destroy his ship and everyone on it. "If I give you this information, what happens to my crew?" Captain Lee was quiet for a moment before answering. "That depends on what we learn from your records. If your crew has committed war crimes against other species, they will be held accountable. If they were just following orders, they will be treated according to the laws of war. And if I refuse, then you will all become a message to your fleet about the price of threatening humanity." Kyle closed his eyes. The choice was no choice at all. These humans had already demonstrated that they could destroy his ship whenever they wanted. At least cooperation offered some hope of survival. "I will tell you what you want to know," he said finally. On the human bridge, Captain Lee nodded with satisfaction. The interrogation would provide valuable intelligence about the Veltari fleet. But more importantly, it would buy time for Earth Command to prepare defenses and position more ships in this region. The Veltari had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that scanning an unknown ship was a safe way to gather information. Instead, they had announced their presence to a species that was very good at turning enemies' strengths into weaknesses. Soon, the rest of the Veltari fleet would learn what their scout ship had discovered. Humans were not another primitive species to be conquered. They were predators who had been waiting patiently for their prey to make the first move. The interrogation of Commander Kale lasted for 6 hours. Captain Lee Dongyun sat across from the Veltari commander in a small meeting room aboard the Indomitable Will. Dr. Park Min-seo and Communications Officer Yoon Na-young were also present, taking notes and analyzing everything Kyle said. "Tell me about your fleet's battle tactics," Captain Lee said. Kale's green-scaled face showed exhaustion and defeat. He had already revealed the positions of over 80 Veltari ships, their planned invasion routes, and the locations of their supply bases. Each piece of information was another nail in his empire's coffin. "We rely on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers," Kyle said quietly. "Our ships attack in coordinated groups using quantum torpedoes and energy beam weapons. We have never lost a major battle." "That is because you have never fought anyone who could fight back properly," Dr. Park observed. "Your records show that most species you conquered had technology centuries behind yours." Kyle nodded miserably. "The galaxy is full of primitive species. We thought humans would be the same." Captain Lee stood up and walked to the small viewing port. Through it he could see the silent whisper floating nearby, its systems still under human control. "Commander Kale, your empire's expansion ends here. We are going to send a message to your fleet that will make them reconsider their plans." "What kind of message?" "A demonstration. Your ship is going to show them what happens when someone threatens humanity." Fear flickered in Kale's reptilian eyes. "You are going to destroy us?" "That depends on what your crew decides to do in the next few minutes." On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, engineer Bei Wu-jin was making final preparations for the demonstration. He had spent hours studying the Veltari quantum communication system and modifying it with human technology. "Captain," he said as Captain Lee returned to the bridge, "the communication system is ready. We can broadcast to the entire Veltari fleet simultaneously." Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, I am detecting some unusual activity on the alien ship. It looks like some of their crew are trying to override our control systems. Can they succeed?" "No, sir. But they are definitely trying. It appears they would rather die fighting than surrender." Captain Lee nodded. He had expected this. The Veltari records showed they were a proud warrior species who rarely surrendered, but pride could be a fatal weakness. Communications Officer Yoon, open a channel to the silent whisper. "Channel open, sir." "Commander Kale, return to your ship immediately. Your crew is about to do something very foolish." On the silent whisper, scanner operative Thex was working frantically at her station alongside 2 other crew members. They had discovered a way to partially bypass the human control systems, but only for a few seconds. "If we overload the main power core," Thex explained, "we can create a feedback pulse that might disrupt their control long enough to send a warning message to the fleet." "Will it work?" asked Dex, the communications officer. "Maybe, but the overload will destroy our ship. We will not survive." The crew members looked at each other. They had served the Veltari Empire their entire lives. The idea of surrendering to an alien species was unthinkable. "Do it," said Dex. "The Empire must be warned about these humans." Commander Kale burst onto the bridge. Just as Thex began the overload sequence, "Stop!" he shouted. "You will kill everyone on this ship." "Better to die with honor than live as prisoners," Thex replied. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, initiating the power core overload. On the human bridge, alarms immediately began sounding. "Captain," Engineer Bay called out, "the Veltari are overloading their power core. They are trying to create a feedback pulse to disrupt our control systems. Can you stop them?" "Working on it, sir, but they have locked out the safety systems. The overload is building too quickly." Captain Lee made a quick decision. "All hands prepare for quantum resonance discharge. Lieutenant Kim, Target their power core with a controlled beam. If we cannot stop the overload, we can at least control it. Targeting now, sir. On the silent whisper, the power core overload was reaching critical levels. The ship's lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Thex watched her displays with grim satisfaction as the feedback pulse built toward the human ship. Message ready for transmission, Dex reported. Fleet warning prepared. Send it, Kale said sadly. He knew his crew was about to die, but perhaps their sacrifice would save the Empire from making the same mistake. The message that went out to the Veltari fleet was not what Dex had intended to send. Engineer Bay I. Wujin had anticipated the aliens' attempt to send a warning. As soon as their transmission began, his modified quantum system intercepted it and replaced it with something completely different. Instead of a warning about dangerous humans, the Veltari fleet received a complete recording of everything that had happened to the Silent Whisper. They saw their own scanning technology turned against them. They watched their systems fail one by one as human technology proved superior. They heard Commander Kale's interrogation and learned that humans had easily extracted all their military secrets. Most importantly, they heard Captain Lee's message to the Empire, to the Veltari fleet. Your scout ship attempted to scan a human vessel without permission. This constitutes an act of war under human law. Your ship and crew are now under our control. We have obtained complete information about your fleet positions, capabilities, and invasion plans. If any Veltari ships enter human space, they will be destroyed. If your empire wishes to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence, you may request negotiations through the Galactic Communication Network. Otherwise, stay away from human territory. You have been warned. The power core overload on the Silent Whisper reached its peak just as the transmission ended. But instead of creating a feedback pulse that might disrupt human systems, the overload was channeled harmlessly into space by Lieutenant Kim's precision beam. The Veltari ship died quietly, its lights going out one by one as the power core collapsed into itself. There was no explosion, no dramatic destruction, just the slow fading of an empire's arrogance. Life signs? Captain Lee asked. None, sir, Dr. Park reported. The crew did not survive the power core collapse. They chose death over surrender, Communications Officer Yoon observed. Even Commander Kale stayed with his ship at the end. Captain Lee nodded with respect. The Veltari had been slavers and conquerors, but they had died with courage. Note that in the log. Whatever else they were warriors. 3 months later, the main Veltari fleet received a second message from the Silent Whisper's last known position. It was a simple text transmission. The human ship Indomitable Will sends greetings to the Veltari Empire. We have been waiting here for 3 months for your arrival. Our long-range sensors detect that your fleet has stopped advancing and begun retreating. This is a wise decision. Humanity has no desire for conquest, but we will defend ourselves against any threat. The galaxy is large enough for both our species, provided you remember the lesson your scout ship learned. Never scan a human warship without permission. The message was signed by Captain Lee Dong-hyun, and it included detailed star charts showing the positions of 50 human warships that had been deployed along the border between human and Veltari space. Admiral Vex, commander of the Veltari fleet, read the message twice before ordering the retreat to continue. The humans had demonstrated technological superiority, tactical brilliance, and the ability to coordinate large fleet movements while his forces were still months away from the battlefield. The Silent Whisper's mission had been to scout for weak prey that the Empire could easily conquer. Instead, it had found predators who had been patiently waiting for the Empire to reveal itself. The last signal sent by the Silent Whisper had indeed been a warning to the Veltari fleet. Just not the warning its crew had intended. It had warned them that the age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were not interested in being anyone's prey. In the empty space where the Silent Whisper had died, the Indomitable Will continued its patrol. Captain Lee and his crew had learned valuable lessons about their new neighbors in the galaxy. Some species, like the Veltari, would need to be watched carefully. Others might become allies. But all of them would learn the same lesson. Humans protected what was theirs, and they were very good at turning their enemies' weapons against them. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting and dangerous place.